Out beyond the ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. And I'll meet you there. Rumi. What I learned 12 years ago is that Aspen is that field. This is that place. This is a space where we can come, debate ideas openly, be vulnerable, and find our way, hopefully, to someplace better than we were before we got here. More full as we head home. My story is I'm from Gainesville, Georgia, a small town. I grew up in a place where my father was an industrial engineer, my mother was a school teacher, but I watched him lose everything. NAFTA came, jobs go overseas, saw a man who was making whatever he was making at that age have to take a job making 10% of that. And I don't know about you, but if you left out of here with 10% of what you walked in with, life changes. My father decided that he would take a purpose-based job and become a jailer at a juvenile detention center because he felt like he had a little bit more to give, and me and my brother had done okay, but he said there's more kids that need fathers in my neighborhood. So I shared my father with 300 other men and women or kids because they were juveniles, and I watched my father minister to them and be everything to them that he was to me. So when I graduated from law school, I had a choice. I could go be at a big firm and do the big law thing, and later in life I did that. But I decided to become a public defender. I decided to go to work with my dad because he was the warden by that time of this juvenile jail. And here's what I learned. I learned that every state prosecutor would bring me a file on a young person that was between the ages of 12 and 17 and tell me this was their story. And I would go to court and have to argue what was in that file. But my father told me that people are more than the files and the labels in front of you. Let me tell you what's really going on in his or her life. He armed me every time I would go into court and tell me what was really behind those eyes of that fear, of worrying that they would never get out of this place. They'd never see playgrounds again. They'd never see their friends in middle school and high school. And I was their only shot. I never lost a case that my father helped me with because he showed me that people are more than that file. And I hope that the files that have been presented to you with the people who you may meet, whether it be affiliations, organizations, where you think they're from, their backgrounds, the people are more than the LinkedIn profiles. And what's beneath there are people who are opportunities to help us all make this world better. It is on that journey of becoming a public defender and walking through that and later finding myself working in the White House that I get to meet Van Jones. It was on that journey after working at the White House that Van and I realized that as two black men that probably have a lot of credentials that you could read all day and we would waste this whole time, that we shared a mentor. We shared a mentor who was a black man who had been incarcerated 35 years. That's a person that he and I both got inspiration from. And it's just a reflection of how many of our best minds have been locked away. I hope that you meet someone on this journey while you're here, and I hope that your conversation helps unlock them to you, to give you access to someone you didn't know, and maybe see them a little bit differently. And so as we talk a little bit today about these choices and what we do to bring people together across political divides and cultural divides, I find myself pivoting in my life. I had an opportunity that a lot of us had during COVID to kind of hit the reset button. Some people made kids, some people started new jobs, people did a lot of things during COVID. I decided, why not go make some movies? Why not recalibrate and buy a bank? Why not start a financial technology company? But like every smart man, I realized you can't do any of that unless you have a very strong woman around you to help you figure it out. And I was fortunate enough that for every one of those companies that I was able to build and start, to have the daughter of the man whose quote Dan just read. The co-founder of all of my companies is Dr. Bernice A. King, a woman who I have grown to admire more and understand the burden that she holds. As any kid that's out here who has a parent with a big name, imagine hers. And she reconciled that by saying, actually, I gave up a long time ago trying to be more famous than my father or my incredible mother, Coretta Scott King. But what I decided to do is just realize that my journey in this life is to help people be like them, to help them understand their teachings, what they have to give to the world. And so I honor Aspen by taking this quote, because I understand that hopefully in the teachings and understanding what this word, that phrase means, what light really means, what really is love, that we can understand the power of that and what the power of love can do. So in telling those stories as a lawyer about saving so many young people's lives and helping them get on a better trajectory, there's no difference in making movies. And so part of the goal that I had, it was this phase of my life, was to like, how do I take being someone who wants to tell those stories and find a way of building coalitions? And what I did was Dr. King and I ended up buying a Jewish production company, investing in it, and making it this black and Jewish film production company to tell stories that nobody else was telling. And it started off with this current administration. We were able to look at what happened with a dear friend of ours, Britney Griner. Anybody ever heard of Britney? You look at what happened with Britney Griner. She was a woman that was minding her business, gets tucked away by Putin, and the world is trying to figure out what happened to her. Now, everybody in the beginning was worried about how do you tell Britney's story. People felt the president wasn't doing enough, wasn't meeting with her spouse, wasn't doing all these things. And then she gets out, and then the other side says, well, you traded her for Satan. Go put her back. Now, if you're the president of the United States, you did what you thought was right, but nobody knows how you did it. But for the last 15 months, a company called P3 that we invested in has been embedded inside the White House to tell the story of Americans who've been locked away overseas who aren't famous, who nobody knows their names. And we asked the question, what would your country do to come bring you home if nobody knows who you are? And what would they trade to bring you back home? And that story is of several Latino men, who many of them are from Los Angeles, who a lot of people don't know, but one of them was a lawyer like me, named Evan Hernandez. He was a public defender for LA County, representing homeless people, the least, the last, and the left behind. Nobody knew Evan's name, but his law school buddies at UCLA who would hold vigils for him in Inglewood and Compton. But we decided to tell his story. And with the help of the White House, we were able to go behind the scenes and show the American people the decisions and how hard these things are. But the reality is, you can't tell that story if it wasn't for one guy named Roger Constance. Roger Constance was appointed by Donald Trump, and when Trump left, the only person who stayed in the Biden administration that was a Trump appointee was Roger Constance. Now, I tell you this story because it's easy to say that when one administration goes out, everybody rushes to say, get rid of everybody. Bring in totally new people. But the families who were able to say, I've never had a government official sit at my table and listen to the stories of how I raised my son and how much it is important to me to get him back at this dinner table. I've been growing this avocado tree in my backyard, hoping that one day by the time those avocados are ripe, that my son will be home. No government official was doing that, but the president recognized, despite the political pressure, you have to do what's right for the people, because when you are locked away overseas, this is the one time the only person that can bring you home is the president of the United States. To tell the story of one administration passing to the other one and keeping the focus on the people, not the politics, that is what brings all of us home. All of us can find our way proverbially home. We can never get too focused on who we're fighting against and forget who we are fighting for. And it's in that space that I've been fortunate enough to find allyship with people like Van. Van represents a new voice, a new era of people who are not willing to just succumb to the talking points. But let's just talk about it.